From one sports fan to another, hello, how are we doing? Welcome back to episode 9 of 933 Sports. Same set, same guy, same thing. Happy to be here on episode 9. Next episode will be episode 10. It's good stuff. So, like I said last episode, I am kind of searching for topics these next couple months. It's going to be kind of a dead time of sports, especially after, NBA wraps up. We move into, July and August before football really picks up, starts going. So if you've got anything for me, let me know. I would love to address some of those topics, hear what other people want to get out of the show. Today, the big topic will be one of those. I had somebody recommend this to me the other day with a bit of a wink and a nudge. You know who you are. I appreciate the suggestion. I do think it's something worth talking about. So, before we get started on that, NBA Conference Finals still going. I'll really break that down once the Western Conference Finals is over. I mean, there's really not much to talk about with the Eastern Conference because the Knicks have that in a stranglehold. Cavs are done. Spurs, Thunder are at war. I watched Game 4 last night. Wemby had another great performance to tie the series. That series has been awesome. It's been a great series so far, but I'll save all of that stuff for after they're over, before the finals start, and we'll actually deep dive that more. So what I wanted to talk about today is how, I guess I'll start with this, so in the fall, after the NFL schedule came out, started buying tickets for some games, and, anybody who's bought a ticket to anything, or anybody who's swiped their card at all recently, knows that stuff's expensive nowadays. And if you're going to these games, I mean, it really doesn't matter the sport, but especially football, tickets are expensive. I mean, going to Soldier Field, in the fall, going to Week 9 Sunday Night Football, Tampa Bay. It's going to be a fun time. Really looking forward to it. But, over $600 per ticket. I mean, it's pricey. It's expensive. Now granted, don't get me wrong, the Bears are actually good now. It's a primetime game. They're probably charging more for tickets because, since they're not going to be at Soldier Field much longer, they know people are trying to get there, myself included, to get to games before it's gone. So I could see that being a factor as well, which, fair. And so there's a lot of reasons for that, but still, it's like over $600 per person. That's a lot of money. And granted, it's not like top deck, but it's not right there on the 50. It's not like, fifth, sixth row. I mean, it's second level, like solid. But what I wanted to talk about jumping off of that, and this is something that, was brought up to me, is just how much we don't care about the fan in the stands anymore, or at least these leagues don't. And what I'll start by saying is, why should they? Because when so much of the money in sports television now is made through television deals, and, you're doing these TV deals for millions upon millions of dollars, I mean, billions in some cases, that's what they care about. That's their main revenue stream. The fan in the stand, that's for individual teams. And especially because, I had this thought about it. Say you're Jimmy Haslam, owner of the Browns. Your team's not good. I mean, Browns are not good. They haven't been good for a while. Even when they are good, are they necessarily generating cash? Not really. And so what's nice about the television deal is you kind of get an equal share of that. It's, the revenues split 32 ways, distributed to the teams, regardless of how good your team is. If you want to be able to charge more for tickets, charge more for merchandise, charge more for a hot dog in the stadium, your team has to be good. I mean, or it has to be a big enough brand, a la Jerry Jones, that people are willing to pay. You have to make it worth it. And for a lot of these teams, they don't make it worth it. I mean, yeah, you have the Browns, even some of the better teams like the Chargers, like SoFi Stadium's a destination. Well, just go see the Rams. More people like the Rams anyway. And so, there's also the convenience factor. Fans don't necessarily want to come to these games because they can sit on their couch with no traffic and, can grill a hot dog that they bought for a pack of 6 for $6 instead of paying $7 for one hot dog. I mean, there's so many different reasons now that it's just not worth it, or it's just not being catered to. It's the same logic as why, concerts are not nearly as full. Artists are canceling tour dates left and right, and they say it's because they're sick or this. No, it's because they're not selling tickets. Like, everything's just too expensive, and then you are asking people to drop $300-$400 on a concert ticket on top of that when they can just go on Spotify, which they're already paying the premium subscription for, and just hit play and listen to any song they want. Especially because, I went to a concert a couple weeks ago. There was a song I wanted somebody to play, and they didn't play it. And the tickets weren't cheap. And so it's like, that's a risk you're running as well. And, I think that's part of the reason why, people just don't want to pay these prices and go to these games. Say you spend, a couple $100 on tickets, parking, food, the whole 9 yards, and then the team gets blown out. You go to a baseball game, say it could be 8-0 in the third inning, teams lose, and it's like, well, this was a waste of time. Like, you're gambling that. If you're just watching the game on TV, you can shut it off, change the channel if you want to, or you're not really missing much. You're not losing out on all that time and money that it took to make that experience a reality. Now, don't get me wrong. If you're a diehard fan of these teams, if you live in the area, you might want to go a couple times. Like for me, I'm a Bears fan. I've never been to a game at Soldier Field. Like, I want to get to at least one, but it's not something that necessarily screams repeat trips. And what I think is interesting about that as well is, season ticket holders are supposed to be the ones that kind of drive that. You have these reoccurring, people pay these packages to get these tickets. Well, most of those season ticket holders just resell game by game. The games they're not going to, they just sell it. And honestly, half the time they're making a net profit on it, probably. Or at least I would guess. You resell it through Ticketmaster or just to a buddy or whatever. And I think that too is why the league and the owners don't really care about the fan in the stands anymore, is because it's just so lawless in terms of, like, getting tickets. Because we talk about how lawless the television deals are, because there's all these streaming services, and then you have the networks, and then you have all these different vendors offering contracts for these services. Well, it's pretty cut and dry. They're all like, we are going to show your game on our platform, and we are doing it to get the ad revenue from the commercial breaks, and because they will pay us, and then people will engage with those companies, and capitalism does its thing. It's pretty cut and dry. With getting tickets, you can go through the team website. You can go through the app. You can get resale tickets. You can buy a ticket directly. If you can wait till closer to the time of the event to get tickets at a discounted rate. You can, there's so many different ways, vendors, strategies, so many different avenues, and so many different motives behind those strategies that trying to get tickets and trying to get the revenue from it is way more difficult. It's a way tougher revenue stream to control, than just these TV deals. And I said it already too, when you're a bad team and you're already not able to charge that much for tickets because nobody wants to pay too much to see a bad product, it's just not worth trying. And that's why they have to drive revenue streams in other areas. Going back to the Browns example, the only reason they drafted Shedeur Sanders was to sell jerseys, was to sell merch. I mean, so at that point, it's like, what are we doing? And especially because for a lot of these owners, like Stan Kroenke owns SoFi Stadium outright. Jerry owns there are a couple owners that own the stadium outright. But the Chargers pay rent to SoFi because Kroenke owns it. The New York teams share MetLife. The McCaskies don't own Soldier Field. There are so many of these owners, especially the less independently wealthy ones, that don't own these facilities. They don't own these stadiums. They own the practice facility, but not the stadium. And so why should they cater to every need of a stadium that they don't own when their business is the brand? And the brand being on TV and being seen by millions is what's making them money, and it's guaranteed revenue. Because, it's way safer because it's even if my specific team is bad, well, there are going to be good teams, and the good teams will keep people watching, and I will still get my check at the end of the day. I might not have as many butts in the seat at my stadium, but who cares? Because it's a way harder revenue stream to control. I'm having to bend over backwards, and it might not even be a facility that I actually own. So the profit margin, I haven't looked at the numbers, and I didn't do any research on this before I press record, but the profit margins have to be way smaller. And that's why they don't. They don't care about the fan in the stands. And why should they? They can't advertise as easily to the fan in the stands. These TV deals, where are they getting all their money from? The ad revenue. And fan in the stands, they're buying the hot dog. You can't be just shoving ads down their throats. You can post stuff around the stadium, but it's way more difficult to just, during a TV timeout, are you just going to run the ads on the scoreboard? No, because that's not what people are paying for. You wouldn't be able to charge as much for tickets. It's a complicated situation, and it's just, pre-television, even radio days, it's with baseball specifically, it's you cared a lot more about the fan in the stands because you just didn't have the means of reaching anybody who wasn't physically there. But now it's especially when you talk football that's gone international at this point, you have fans watching you are reaching a worldwide audience. There are games on these streaming services that are being broadcast across the world. And these networks and these services will pay out their eyeballs to be able to show these games. So why would you care about the one fan out of the 70,000 in your stadium on a weekly basis? Think about it this way, too. Another reason they don't care about the fan in the stands is because of the lack of reoccurrence. You especially talk football, at regular season-wise, teams are only playing 8 or 9 games. You look at Jacksonville, they're the home team for their 2 London games this year. The Jacksonville Jaguars are only playing 6 games in Jacksonville this year. 6. That's it. So why would you spend so much time, energy, and effort into trying to make it different or special when you're barely even going to use it? It's just straight up not getting used. You look at that math. The Georgia-Florida game is played there in Jacksonville every year. It's that's the 7th occurrence of that stadium being used this fall. That's almost, that's 15% of the games at Jacksonville Stadium this fall are gonna be a college game. That's crazy. And so, I think at that point, it's it's just not worth it. I've said it. I've said it several times in the past 10 minutes. It is not worth the time to invest into this. Now, getting off of football with it, you do see this. The more home games a team has, the more they care about the fan experience in the stadium because they have more games they're trying to sell you. Baseball is the perfect example of this. Baseball, every ballpark in Major League Baseball is completely unique. Whether it's, Wrigley, whether it's Petco, whether it's even the crappy ones like Tropicana Field, like every stadium is unique in the MLB. And they all have their way more quirks, they have way more specialties because they have to. They have so many home games that they have to fill seats because it's and they don't have the television deals as a result. That's why football's king is because of their small quantity of games, they can be more focused on big television deals and less on actual fans. Baseball is the complete opposite. Basketball and hockey kind of follow in the middle there. Even then, basketball and hockey, they don't really care as much because, most of them are sharing their arenas. Either one team owns it or the other one does, or neither. There's a reason why the Stars want to move out of American Airlines here in Dallas, or the Mavs want to move out of American Airlines here in Dallas and get their own spot because they're competing, and it's not a fair, you want to be able to have that control. And so for baseball, you can only play baseball at a baseball park. It was built for the purpose of baseball. And you have 81 home games a year. 81, I don't know why I said 91. 81 home games a year. Yeah, you kind of have to cater to people, especially when that's the only, you can have a couple of concerts there, like Dodger Stadium has concerts all the time, but outside of that, there's really not much. And that's another thing about, football stadiums. They're not even used for football. They're used for concerts. You've got them used for the World Cup here in a couple weeks. They're used for other things. And that goes back to, a lot of owners don't own their stadium because of this. It's a difficult situation. This conversation really gets into more the business aspect of sports than what's actually happening on the field, just naturally, because it's about, fan experience and getting what you paid for and all these different things. But it really does just boil down to, it's just not worth the time, especially because, at this point, and I've talked about this previously in other episodes, you're either a fan or you're not at this point, especially when it comes to something like football. You're either a fan or you're not. At least here in the United States. You are born into a football family and you like football, or you just don't like it. You either do or you don't, and there's nothing else Roger Goodell or anybody else could do to convince you otherwise. That's why the league's going international. That's why we're playing all these international games this year. We're playing more and more of them every year, is because we need more fans. So let's go to these stadiums. Let's make it more of an event where people will pay these ridiculous ticket prices because it's the one game that's there. It's the one game that's in, Australia. It's the first time we've ever had one there. Or, it's one of the 2 or 3 games a year in London. It's just the scarcity of it. And, hey, it's on your time zone, so you can actually, not have to bend over backwards and watch it on Monday morning at, 4 a.m. before you go to work. There's so... Those are the fans that actually show out. Because they have a reason to, because we're trying to create fans. Once the fans are created, and they're willing to just flip on the TV... That's when the NFL no longer cares about them, because they know they've got them locked, and they'll just turn on Sunday Night Football without delay. They'll watch the 4:25 America's Game of a Week. They've got you in a chokehold, and the NFL doesn't care about them anymore. And that's why, because they're trying to grow their audience to where, at a certain point, do I expect these stadiums to empty out? No, I don't, especially for football. It's never going to completely empty out. There will be an adjustment made. Part of the thing is, too, they would never let it do empty stadiums. We saw how unfun it was during COVID to play in front of empty stadiums. We don't want that again. And whether it's a drop in ticket prices, whatever they have to do to keep people coming in, they will. But it is not their primary concern anymore, nor should it be. I'm getting to the point where I'm kind of repeating myself, so I don't want to drag this out too long. I mean, it's pretty obvious to anybody, the situation. I'm not saying don't go to live sporting events. They're fun. Maybe don't go as often. You just can't from a financial perspective, a lot of people. But it's a great way to make fans, but once you're trained to just turn it on TV, these leagues do not care about you at that point because it's easier for them and us. And so, yeah. That'll do it for today. Appreciate everybody listening. Like I said, if you have any ideas for future episodes, let me know. And that'll be all for today. Signing off. See y'all later.